Hello and welcome back to JBCTR, where today I have a lot to moan about. Here's my review of the Mustang MACH1. Now, I'll let you into a little secret. When I went to replace my Fiesta ST, the Mustang was one of the first places I went to go in order to replace the Fiesta. But I had a 30-minute test drive, and on that test drive I left bitterly disappointed. So having spent a full week with the Mustang, and this one is particularly special, gave me a chance to air with you my concerns about the car. Now, I have absolutely no issues with the outside of this car because I think it looks insane, and that is one of the main appeals. The problems, they start inside. Let's start here in the back. So you've got some nice back seats which actually fit some humans in, which I will demonstrate in a second. But to get in, you simply pull this seat forward. Would you like to get in, sir? No, because it's still not big enough. Let me move the seat forward. But once you're in, the seats are pretty comfortable, and for children and small adults, it's actually right in here. I mean, I am kind of on the smaller side of adults, and my head is a little bit tilted against the rear windscreen, but you know what? For this style of car, this is pretty good. But hang on, I'm meant to be moaning here. So, if we hop in the front, we're immediately presented with my most annoying gripe. And that is this center console. So clearly this has been laid out for the American left-hand drive, and obviously we are right-hand drive, but they haven't switched this center console. So if you, like me, like to stay hydrated, which you should, then I always carry a bottle with me. These are the two cup holders, and then if your bottle is there, then it's just in the way of your gear stick. And clearly this is manual, so you use this all the time. But say you don't drink water, maybe just like coffee, which is served in these small cups. I have a reusable one here because I like to save the planet. But if I stick this in here, or here, then I'm constantly leaning on it, and that's the bit you drink out of. So now I have coffee all over my sleeve, and that's not very nice either. And not to mention the fact that the handbrake is on the other side, but to be honest, it's not actually that far away. So that's less of a gripe. The biggest concern is the bottles. And if you move up the center console and turn the car on, we're presented with yet more annoyance. You've got the whole panel here. It looks pretty cool, loads of buttons, but actually the ones you really need are kind of hidden within sync. So if you're using Apple CarPlay, like I am here, I'm using it for navigations because it's better than Sync 3's nav. You have to click one button to go back to the CarPlay menu, one button to go back to Sync, one button to click Climate, and now you can put your heated steering wheel on. I mean, it's bizarre. Why can't they put a button for the simple things around climate that you need quick access to? Annoying. And lastly, if we start the car, the exhaust is now in normal mode, and that's no good because you need everyone to know you've got a Mustang. So we need to put the exhaust in race, so we've got to press one button. Well, I've got to quit all the menus first, and we've got to press one button, then exhaust mode, and then move it into track, and then we're there at last. Oh, why can't they make this car more simple? But actually, all these things are kind of gripes. They're semantics. I bloody love this car. Let's go for a drive and I will show you and tell you why. Okay, so the Mustang MACH1. I've done a lot of moaning up until this point, but all that kind of doesn't matter because listen to that sound. Oh. I mean, I must admit, I actually don't think this car is that good at anything. I mean, it's not the best handling, it's not the most powerful, it's certainly not the fastest, but actually, that doesn't matter. This thing makes you smile so much, and that sound is just the start. Ooh, twitchy bum. Oh! All the power from this engine is right at the top end. So as you go through the revs, it gets more and more powerful up until about 6,000 RPM. And then you get this surge of power. And if you're not concentrating and you're not holding on, that surge of power at the end can kind of catch you out, especially if you're like mid-corner. And obviously, because it's rear-wheel drive, it can get a little bit twitchy if you slam it into gears a bit hard. It sort of wobbles a little bit. It's just an exciting car to drive. I mean, you gotta concentrate all the time. It's not like any other modern car on sale. And actually, one of the most useful things about having a massive 5-litre V8, naturally aspirated of course, is that the engine braking is really strong. So as you can see, like, I've used first gear all the way down, and you can slow this car pretty damn quickly just by using engine braking. You barely have to use the brakes in normal driving, and it's actually quite cool, I must admit. Ooh, slide around again. But the thing is, there's so much drama, so much noise, it feels fast, but actually, if you look at the speedo, it isn't actually that fast, and you can really enjoy this car well within UK speed limits. I mean, yeah, it's awesome. Now, if we talk about the gearbox for just a second, and the gearbox itself is pretty good, actually. It's proper, like, chonky when you, like, chuck it in. You have to really, like, wrench it into each gear, and to move it from each gear is an actual workout. Like, you have to really work this gearbox because it's physically stiff. But that just adds to the fact that this is a muscle car, and it, as an occupant within the vehicle, you genuinely feel like you are actually taming this thing. Like, as I say, it's hard work, but it's not unenjoyable. It's just something that's not for sale in the current market, and it's so cool to see. I mean, I must admit, the pedal spacing, if I'm being picky, is a little bit far apart to do heel and towing, but in all modes in the Mustang, it rev matches for you, which normally I would dislike, but given that this is rear-wheel drive and very lively at the rear, the fact it rev matches is very useful, because it means that if you select the wrong gear, you're not going to lock up the rear wheels and send yourself into a slide. And then we can go. Whee! Oh, I actually don't think I would get bored of the acceleration on this car. As I said earlier, it's not the most powerful. I mean, hot hatches nowadays are so fast and they're so pinpoint that if you were to compare this, which is kind of what I did when I was trying to replace my Fiesta, to the modern hot hatches, you're going to be bitterly disappointed. And I was. Like, the handling on this car is different, I would say. It's not the pinpoint accurate of the hot hatches that we see quite often now. In fact, actually, if you go over a bump, you'll feel the chassis sort of like, you feel it absorb the bump. It's really odd. It doesn't unsettle the car like some of the other muscle cars, but it just feels heavy. But that said, if you do chuck it into a corner, provided you're not on the power, it does stick quite well, I must admit. It feels a bit sketchy around here. See, even around some corners, it just sort of does really well. It really does stick and hold on. I mean, when I was in America, I rented a Camaro, a V6, and I could not have been more disappointed. Like, every time it went over the bumps, it was a convertible, and you could actually see the chassis flexing by watching the top of the windscreen move across, and it was really unnerving to drive. I honestly felt like I was on the edge of grip, and I just didn't feel safe in it. Whereas this is, for a muscle car, is planted until that back starts to slide. And let's not forget, these are like British back roads. This car was not designed to do this, and yet Ford have made it so that it can. I am so glad that this car exists in today's world. In fact, this car is even ULEZ compliant. So if you live near London, you can take it in and not get charged. I mean, this thing, I seriously hope they keep on sale for as long as they possibly can before the march of the electric vehicles come in, because this is one hell of an experience. So there we have it. There are my thoughts on the Mustang Mach-1. Oh, actually, one more party piece. Look, the boot is massive, and it's even bigger when you put the seats down, which means, despite this car being totally and utterly ridiculous, it can still do most of the practical stuff too. So there we have it. I definitely got this wrong when I first test drove it as a private buyer, and now, having spent a week with it, I totally get it, and I totally love it. So there we have it, my thoughts on the Mustang Mach-1. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe by clicking over here. And if you want to see more of the Mustang, then I will be doing a comparison video between the Mach-1 and the standard GT model. And when that's live, I'll put that over here. So otherwise, I'll catch you in the next one.